I can shoot. Okay, I'm interested in my question to the AD team. I'd like to hear your thoughts on exactly what moral principle or principles the Senate Bill 191 the proposition of evaluating teachers on the basis of their students' performance. What principle or principles does that violate?
Okay. Well, the first one that we'd like to address is the principle of utility, utilitarianism. What we want in an educational system is the best for primarily our students, but for the teachers involved, the administration, the students, and society at large. So we believe that a system designed to, number one, get the most out of our students, give them the best education possible, set them up for the best and most successful futures is the best way to go. Number two, we want something that is the best for our teachers. We want them to have a positive working environment, somewhere where they enjoy coming to work and doing what they do, impacting the youth, while also being well reciprocated, I guess, or well reimbursed for their efforts. You know, we want them to be protected in their job and know that they're going to have a steady paycheck. We want what's best for the administration in the school district. We want them to be able to access the government funds that are given out to the best districts because their great teachers are producing great students. So it's primarily the principle of utility. We're trying to create the greatest good for all the people involved.
In a secondary note, we also are using Kant because when we solely base it on teachers based on standardized scores, the teachers are just using students as a means to an end. They're just using the students more to promote and get themselves tenure. And we'd like to use the utilitarian version to promote societal good, not just good for the teacher.
Furthermore, going further along Kant, we also see it's a violation of duty ethics as well, because this Senate bill would be inhibiting really the teacher's ability to carry out their duty of teaching their students and expanding their knowledge. So at that point, we see there's quite a bit of violations that
I'm curious about the concept you suggest about delaying tenure while measuring student achievement before one decides whether to keep a teacher or not. Aren't you still saying then that teacher tenure and pay should be decided on student achievement? I realize that you're not in favor of standardized testing, but in some ways you do want to tie it to student achievement. Particularly, you mentioned the real-life applications. What are those real-life applications? I have no idea.
Well, we see tying it to student achievement as a secondary towards the teacher performance. It's primarily the teacher performance is what we're grading. Student achievement is a byproduct of the teacher's performance. So we're trying to tie tenure to the best teachers, the ones who are most able to get their job done. So whether or not the students are actually achieving, going back to what we mentioned before with the low income or perhaps a dysfunctional family or students with special needs, those students are much less likely to be achieving. But that doesn't mean that the teacher isn't effective in getting to them or bettering their lives or setting them up for a better future.
So what do you use as for teacher evaluation if not student achievement?
That's a great question. Things we would recommend are something of a growth, as was shown, suggested by the other team. We want it's teacher evaluations, supervisor evaluations, the people who do the same things to teachers, their peers, and then their supervisor, the principal, the school administrators to review and gauge that way. But for the most part, I mean, how do you grade teachers? If we knew we would have a better tenure system.
Additionally, there's quite a few other methods to grade them. For instance, higher education. Many teachers around the country are required to have get more higher education while they teach. But we can encourage teachers through tenure and merit pay to achieve even higher education and go further to better their goals and to better their students. So going on and going to a college class, taking a class on teaching certain students or various courses that are offered can help a teacher improve their performance. There's also a very solid way of evaluating how, you see how the teacher does in that course, how the teacher learns, and how the teacher then is able to transfer that to the classroom. So that's another way we can evaluate teacher performance.
And the final suggestion, which is a bit flawed, granted, but is student reviews of teachers. See if they feel like maybe they didn't perform so well, but do they think their teacher was interested in them? Oftentimes you see universities have their students rate their professors. It's much less often used at the high school level, but it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. You just have to account for the student who got a bad grade and trying to stick it to the teacher. But if you could come up with a way that you have a generally unbiased and clear evaluation, then perhaps the student review system would also be helpful.
The bill proposed says that only half of the teacher's annual evaluation would be based on these more standardized measurements. So if that's only half, does that still render this particular Senate bill unethical in your view, since the other half could take into account these other measures that you suggested?
We do still believe that it's unethical because what this bill does is it destroys tenure. What this does is, tenure is, for the reasons we mentioned before, the protection of these teachers. And what it's meant to be is basically a lifelong guarantee that you have your job and you'll be protected from salary cuts, job loss, or more so on the university level is jealous academics and other research and contrary opinions. So what this Senate bill does, and granted this is more geared towards the high school level, is it takes away that guaranteed protection. While there are some benefits to it, such as ensuring that teachers are continuing at a high-performing level, we believe that it fundamentally changes the meaning of what tenure is in a negative manner.
Does the appeals process that is provided for assist in some of those concerns?
It does assist in some of the concerns. However, the fact that there is somewhat of a remedy does not take away from the disease itself. The bill is basically seriously damaging tenure in Colorado. And if the review process, hopefully it would be an effective one that would weed out the unfair results, get rid of teachers that are kept, or keep the teachers that would have been gotten rid of. However, we think that just because there is a decent appeals process, that doesn't take away from the disease, as it were, itself.
Well, had a chance to